Hi everybody, thank you for joining me. Now this might be a long video, so if you want to grab a drink, settle down, relax, that might be a good idea. Today I'm going through my entire Paul McCartney CD collection. There's a lot to get through. Now, I'm not going to focus on the Paul McCartney Archive Collection Deluxe editions in this video, but let's just have a quick look at them to get those out of the way. So here's my collection of Deluxe editions of the Paul McCartney Archive Collection. They're all there. We've obviously still got some gaps that we want to get filled as soon as possible. The only things that I haven't got in this series, there was another version of Tug of War released, which was, it was £100. Now if Paul McCartney announced an archive edition super deluxe that was £100, we'd all be rubbing our hands saying, thankfully he's brought the price down. At the time it was a massive price hike, and we didn't really know why, what was going to be in it that was going to make it so valuable. So I ordered it and it came in a big box, and it was a slightly different cover, and essentially it just had a few extra photographs with it. I immediately thought, don't need this, and I put it on eBay and I sold it straight away. Had there been something there definitely worth keeping it for, like if he'd signed it for example, I would have had that in here definitely. Never regretted getting rid of it. The only other thing that I don't have, I've got the deluxe edition of Flaming Pie. I did not buy the huge collector's edition that's probably twice as high and comes out to here and would fill a whole cabinet. I said at the time that they'd finally beaten me, and I stuck to that. I didn't buy that. But that's the Archive Deluxe editions. Now back to the rest of the CD collection. That's those done. We'll save that for a more in-depth look in a future video. But I have got down here all sorts of CDs. I'm going to go through them. I would like to know in the comments if you've got any questions about any of these CDs. Also, if there's any other kind of topics that you'd like to see me run through my CD or vinyl collection on, let me know. I would be potentially very happy to do that. So, these are in some kind of order, but we've got albums here, we've got CD singles, I've got compilations, I've got things where albums by other people but Paul McCartney appears on. There's all kinds of things like that here. So let's get cracking, and a good place to start is at the beginning. Well, we're not talking Beatles here, forget the Beatles for now, but The Family Way from 1966. So this was of course the album that Paul McCartney wrote the music for, that George Martin then arranged for this particular film that came out kind of, this was done during that period after the Beatles had finished touring in 1966 and before they started on Sgt. Pepper. Each of the four Beatles kind of did their own thing. Paul did The Family Way. I only actually saw the film for the first time about a year ago and really enjoyed it. It's a great British kitchen sink drama of the 1960s, and I really like those films. But that is is it essential? Probably not. But it's a real good idea of what kind of things Paul McCartney was doing as he started to think of things to do outside of the Beatles. We've then of course got McCartney from 1970. Now this particular version is the 1993 Paul McCartney Collection that came out, covering a lot of his albums kind of up to that point. So it's got no bonus tracks at all, it's just straight through to Crean O'Craw or Crean O'Crawray. But that was for many years, well until the Archive Collection came out, this was my only copy of McCartney, and that's how I got to learn the album. Then when the Archive Collection came out, there is this version here, as well as the deluxe edition that we saw before. I picked up, because I actually got these first. I wasn't collecting the deluxe editions when they first came out, right at the start. That kind of followed later. The deluxe edition for McCartney was the first one that I got, and I got it at the end of 2012, so it had kind of already been out a while at that point. And it was a present to me. I left a job that I'd been in for 24 years, and the McCartney Deluxe Archive Edition was my present for leaving work. But up until that point, I had this particular version. Then Ram. Now this was my introduction to Ram as an album, and this was a really early 1980s CD, sort of around the back end of the 1980s. So it predates the Paul McCartney Collection from 1993. So it's very much a typical 1980s style CD there. Again, no bonus tracks at all, but as an introduction to Ram for me, that served me very nicely for many years. Until, again, I picked up this when the Ram Archive edition came out because I wasn't getting the deluxe editions at that point. So this was the 2-disc edition, which the little hype sticker has just fallen out, so we shall pick that up. I do like to keep the hype stickers where possible. I'll make sure I put that back in there shortly. And I did enjoy these. It's such a shame we don't get these anymore. The Coming Soon, you remember the Coming Soon cards that we used to get in the Paul McCartney Archive collection? You'd buy Ram and you'd think, what's coming next? Oh, we've got Venus and Mars, Speed of Sound and Wings Over America coming soon. I wish they would start doing these again rather than leaving us hanging with, as the series finished, hasn't it? What would be next? We've no idea. But I kind of guess this tied them into a situation that they probably would have found difficult to get out of. But I did like the Coming Soon cards. So this was a good one, the remastered CD, and then the second disc of bonus material there. So again, that kept me going for probably 2 or 3 years after the Archive collection came out that I got the deluxe edition. So that served me up until that point. Wildlife, again, this is from the 1993 Paul McCartney collection. And until the Archive edition came out, again, this was the only copy of Wildlife that I had, I believe. Yeah, it was. Yeah, this was the only one. So bonus tracks on here: Give Ireland Back to the Irish, Mary Had a Little Lamb, Little Woman Love, and Mama's Little Girl. So a few good bonus tracks on there. That was Wildlife. Red Rose Speedway, again from the 1993 Paul McCartney collection. Again, until the Archive collection came out, this was the only version that I had access to. And bonus tracks on here: Sea Moon, Hi Hi Hi, The Mess, and I Lie Around. I did quite like the Paul McCartney collection where it had. This one didn't have, but a lot of them had. Just kind of like a white cover with a small version of the album in the middle. Trust me to pick one that doesn't seem to have that. But Red Rose Speedway there. Band on the Run. Now, I don't actually have anymore my original Band on the Run CD, much to my regret, which was one of the 1980s CDs. And this is kind of why I'm saying now, I'm never going to sell my CDs again, because I always end up seeming to regret it. But when I got the Archive collection, I thought, I've got no need for that anymore, and I gave it to somebody. I can't even remember who I gave it to now. But we'll come on to that Archive collection in a minute. I've got the 25th anniversary edition that came out in the back end of the 1990s. This CD one, it's got Helen Wheels on. Now, personally, I'm not a fan. I like Helen Wheels, the song. I think it's a great song. But I don't like it on this album. Paul McCartney didn't want to put it on the Band on the Run album originally. It was kind of a decision made in America. And I prefer the album without. It's then got a second CD of sort of interesting little sort of alternate versions, demos and various bits and pieces. But that's a nice 2-disc edition from the late 1990s, including a poster in there. Also, again, because I wasn't collecting the deluxe editions at the time, but I did pick up on the day of release, same as the others, the 2-disc version of Band on the Run when the Archive collection came out. Make sure the hype sticker doesn't fall out of here. No, it doesn't seem to want to do. And this was a 3-disc edition. It was very generous as a sort of a cut down version. 2 CDs plus a DVD. There's the hype sticker. I found that before it fell out. So this is a really nice package as a sort of a standard edition. But again, once I've got the deluxe edition, it's kind of made this redundant, but I'm never going to get rid of these. So that's nice. I can't close that up properly. Interesting. There we go. That's better. Dear me. Venus and Mars. So I was having a think about what was the first Paul McCartney CD I ever bought. And as far as I can remember, this is it. So it would have been 1990s when I got my first CD player. And probably not long after that, I would have bought this. So this came out, this is 1987, this particular CD came out. Venus and Mars, and then at the end it's got Zoo Gang, Lunchbox, Odd Socks and My Carnival as bonus tracks. And again, until the archive collection came out, this was my only reference point for Venus and Mars. So again, that did me for sort of well over 20 years as my go-to version for Venus and Mars. Wings at the Speed of Sound. This is from the 1993 Paul McCartney Collection again, and I remember absolutely hammering this in 1993. I just bought my first house. I was living on my own at the time. I'd got a Super Nintendo. I was playing Super Mario and various tennis and football games while listening to my Wings at the Speed of Sound CD. So this screams 1993 to me, does this album, far more than it does 1976, just from my own personal memories. But again, we've got bonus tracks on here: Walking in the Park with Eloise, Bridge on the River Sweet, and Sally G. Sally G is a song I absolutely adore. Absolutely adore. It's impossible for Sally G to come on and me not to sing along to that. So, I mean, it's probably, apart from Silly Love Songs, it's probably my favourite song on the whole album there. Wings at the Speed of Sound. We've then got Wings Over America. Now, there was the big sort of chunky fat box CD edition. I never had that. I never actually owned a copy of Wings Over America until the archive collection came out. I just had a copy that I'd got from somebody up until then. But again, I didn't get the deluxe edition until later on, because by the time this one came out, I still wasn't collecting the deluxe editions immediately. It was something that, it was very soon after this that I started getting the deluxe editions. So I bought this on day of release. Again, we've got I've managed to keep the hype sticker there. And just a nice sort of basic little package there with Wings Over America in. So yeah, Wings Over America came out, and then I think the next two, if I remember rightly, in the series for the archive collection was Venus and Mars and Wings at the Speed of Sound, and those I bought at the time that they came out. So I got those on release day, and pretty much that was the time when I was then buying up all the ones that had been up to that point, and my goodness, I'm glad I did, because you look at the prices of some of them now, something like McCartney 2, they're listed for hundreds and hundreds of pounds. Whether anybody actually pays that amount for them, I don't know, but that's what they're always listed at. Now, I've actually owned about 5 copies of the McCartney 2 Archive Collection Deluxe over the years. None of them has left my hands for more than about £30. I've given a couple of them away as birthday presents to people. But yeah, I wish I had 3 of those sat wrapped in this room at the moment in the shrink wrap. That would be a nice little pension plan. But anyway, I digress there. On to London Town now. Again, this is from the 1993 Paul McCartney Collection. And this is, well, I mean, we're still waiting for an updated version of this, aren't we? Could it be soon? It's possible. There might be the first inkling of some rumours, but I'm not quite sure whether to take them with a pinch of salt at the moment. But it's got the bonus tracks Girls' School and Mull of Kintyre. Fun little fact about Mull of Kintyre, which I think sort of probably is more mind-blowing if you're not from the UK, and if it remains one of McCartney's obscurities. Mull of Kintyre to this day is the biggest selling non-charity single in UK chart history. Incredible. Outsold everything by the Beatles, everything by anybody else ever, apart from a very select few songs that have been that have raised money for charity. But London Town, I would really love to hear an improved version of this, because I think this is a little bit muddy. I did buy an original pressing vinyl for about £5 about 2 or 3 years ago, and it sounds so much better than this. So I am confident that with an archive collection, there is a lot of audio enhancements can be teased over the 1993 collection version of the CD. We've then got Wings Greatest. When is this from? I mean, this is an old version. This isn't the recent remaster that came out 2 or 3 years ago. This is kind of one of these original 80s CDs. Useful to have for some of the alternate versions that are on there. With a Little Luck, for example, being the single version, I've always far preferred the album version of With a Little Luck that's on here, that's got that sort of extended, really sort of laid back, calm section before the end of the song that really just kind of gives the song room to breathe. Whereas this cuts that out, and the single version always sort of feels as though it's lacking to me. But a great compilation, and amazing really how few compilations Paul McCartney has released during his career, compared to many sort of comparable artists. Not many at all. Back to the Egg next. And again, this is the 1993 Paul McCartney CD version. I do have a vinyl copy of this album, only bought very recently. So again, this is pretty much the only version of the album that I've ever had. It's not one of my favourite Paul McCartney albums at all. It would be down near the bottom of my rankings. But I would love to know how I can have my opinion of the album enhanced with an archive collection. It did it for me with Pipes of Peace, that I was never a fan of. I enjoy the album a lot more now since the archive collection. Part of it is me being a tight Yorkshireman and the fact that I've paid all this money for it. I'm going to get my money's worth. I'm going to enjoy the bloody thing. Well, I hope the same thing happens with Back to the Egg. I would love an archive collection to come out and help me to appreciate, because I think there's a lot of great songs on there. I like the songs. It just, for me, it's never hung together great as an overall album listen. And I realise that that's completely a different opinion to what a lot of you will have. But it's just my opinion. McCartney 2. Again, this is the 1993 Paul McCartney Collection version, with bonus tracks Check, Check, Check My Machine, Secret Friend and Goodnight Tonight. 3 great bonus tracks there. You're talking quality of bonus tracks. That is fantastic. So again, until the archive collection came out, this was my only copy of McCartney 2, an album that I now really like, really enjoy it. I mean, I could never claim it to be one of his best. I think that would be a silly claim. But in terms of enjoyment, there's so much to enjoy in that album. I really love it. And again, when the archive collection came out, because I wasn't at that point buying the deluxe editions, how many times am I going to say that? I picked up this on the day of release. And this is the version with the bonus CD. What an absolutely fantastic job they made of the McCartney 2 archive collection in terms of, if, as has been stated, Paul McCartney's aim with some of these, what you might class as lesser albums, if his intention was to have people reappraise them and relook at them with fresh eyes, what a wonderful job was done. Again, managed to keep my hype sticker, as I often do, and that beautiful coming soon card. Other titles available and coming soon. Brilliant. But the bonus tracks on here get in things like full versions of Secret Friend, Check My Machine, full version of Wonderful Christmas Time, and things like All You Horse Riders, Blue Sway. Just this album has just really, really benefited, probably more than any other, I think, from having an archive collection. Tug of War. Again, it's the 1993 Paul McCartney Collection version. And again, this was my introduction to Tug of War. And again, until the archive collection, this was the only copy that I had. This doesn't have any bonus tracks on it, which is a shame. But what a wonderful album. That picture long confused me, because if you think Paul McCartney was 40 at this point, that to me does not look like a 40-year-old man. That looks like a teenager to me. And for a long time, it confused me about where that photograph came from. Because it just didn't seem to me like a 1982 era Paul McCartney. But that is a wonderful album. It's a shame, I think, that it was remixed for the archive collection. I understand why it happened. There were, because of the way that it was mixed originally in 1982, it was mixed digitally. And it was mixed in such a way that you couldn't create a high-res version from that mix. And part of the Paul McCartney archive collection remit is to offer a high-res version. They couldn't do it, and that's why they went back and remixed the album. Now, to me, the remix is nowhere near as good as the original mix, but it was kind of something that they were kind of forced into do to maintain the consistency of the archive collection in offering a high-res. But in maintaining that consistency, it introduced an inconsistency in that it's the only album that's had a remix. I would love to see Venus and Mars get a remix. I think that could benefit. Tug of War did not need a remix, except for those technical reasons I just mentioned. Anyway, on to Pipes of Peace. Again, this is the 1993 Paul McCartney Collection version. I was such a non-fan of this album for a long, long time. I love the song Pipes of Peace. I think I've mentioned before that Pipes of Peace was the first Paul McCartney song I ever knew, as in post-Beatles song, because I was just at that age where it was kind of the first new release of his that I knew. Tug of War era passed me by completely for whatever reason, even though I was listening to a lot of pop music then. But Pipes of Peace, massive song for me, but the rest of the album just didn't enjoy for a long time, but I enjoy it a lot more now since the archive collection. I think it's definitely helped me to appreciate it. The 3 bonus tracks on here, Twice in a Lifetime, We All Stand Together and Simple as That. Great, okay, it's good to have those. I mean, I do love We All Stand Together anyway, but I already had that on All the Best. I wasn't already familiar with the other 2, but I do certainly prefer Pipes of Peace when it ends with Through Our Love. But, again, you couldn't claim it to be one of the best Paul McCartney albums, I don't think. Talking of not the best Paul McCartney albums, give my regards to Broad Street. This is an original, well, as far as I know, I think this is an original 1984 CD. So this is probably the oldest pressing CD that I've got of Paul McCartney's. I do enjoy the album. I mean, I don't enjoy all of it. Silly Love Songs, for example. I mean, it was great on Wings of the Speed of Sound, one of his classics. Utterly pointless on here. But I do enjoy the medley of Yesterday, Here, There and Everywhere and Wanderlust. I think that hangs together really nicely. And the new songs that are on there, Not Such a Bad Boy and No Values. I do enjoy both of those. And I like Goodnight Princess. That's like a fun little Paul McCartney granny music, to use John Lennon term at the end there. I would love to see an archive collection version of Give My Regards to Broad Street. I would absolutely be all over that. Press to play next. Talking of things that I would love an archive collection version of, if they announced that there was a press to play archive version coming, that would be, to me, that would be the one that would excite me most, I think. I enjoy this album. And I know it's not particularly well regarded. What I like about this album is the fact that Paul was trying. He was experimenting. It didn't always work. A lot of it sounds very, very dated, which I'm not going to knock it down too much, because I've always kind of thought, well, if knocking an album because it sounds like 1986, well, it was 1986. What do you expect it to sound like? It would be interesting to hear much more stripped back versions of some of these songs. But I do enjoy this album. But what I will say is, on press to play on CD, because the CD was obviously a new format at the time. This is an original CD from the era, and Right Away, It's Not True, and Tough on a Tightrope were bonus tracks on the CD version. If you'd bought it on vinyl at the time, those 3 were not there, so they were CD only bonus tracks. Now, they're good songs, don't get me wrong, I don't mind those songs, but press to play as an album, I feel, works so much better if it finishes on However Absurd, as it does on the vinyl version. I think the album just works so much better. But yeah, I would be absolutely all over a press to play archive collection. There's so much things that you could include in that would make it really interesting. So yeah, an enjoyable album. We are now entering the era of the CD single. Paul McCartney, Once Upon a Long Ago. Inexplicably not released in the USA. I don't know why. This was kind of a big song for me at the time, because although I was familiar with Pipes of Peace, Broad Street passed me by at the time. Press to Play completely passed me by at the time. So this was kind of, after Pipes of Peace, this was like kind of like the first Paul McCartney song that I was really interested in, and I was starting to get interested in Paul McCartney and the Beatles at the time. So this was a big song for me, although I didn't pick up this CD single until maybe about 10 years ago. I got this probably off eBay, I think. But what a novelty that must have been at the time. I certainly wasn't, I didn't even have a CD player at the time, so I wouldn't have been buying it then, but it comes in a, whether this is original or not, this little cloth case that it comes in, I don't know, but certainly that's how it came to me. Paul McCartney, Once Upon a Long Ago, which is a fine, fine song. I think. And of course, that was released to accompany All the Best. So this was, I went out and bought this as soon as it came out. Not this CD, because again, I wasn't buying CDs then, but I bought it on cassette. That was the first thing I'd ever bought of Paul McCartney or the Beatles or any of the members of the Beatles, was All the Best on cassette, and I absolutely devoured it. And pretty much Pipes of Peace and Mull of Kintyre and We All Stand Together were probably the only songs I already knew on here when it came out. I didn't know Jet, I didn't know Band on the Run, for example. I didn't know Silly Love Songs. I'd probably heard Live and Let Die. So Another Day I didn't know. That was a massive album for me. The back end of the 1980s, that's probably the most important album in my life, I would think, is that album. And the fact that I'm sat here today doing all this stems directly from the release of this album, I would say. But I also got, a few years ago, this. Now, these weren't a thing in the UK. The long box, those of you in America will be very familiar with these. But I picked this up a few years ago purely because it has slight differences to the UK version. Namely that the coming up is the live version, whereas on the UK version it's the studio version from McCartney 2. So I didn't have the live version, so in order to have it I needed to buy this. I don't think I knew it was coming in the long box. It was a surprise when it landed in the post, but a nice surprise, because it's still, apart from the Beatles Capitol albums, Volume 1 and 2, which I probably don't count, to be honest. I think this is probably the only long box that I have. And you'll see that the covers are slightly different. You'll see the logos on the front between the UK and the American version are different. The track listing is significantly different. It's completely different orders. The US version finishes on My Love. It doesn't even have We All Stand Together or Mull of Kintyre, and there are various other differences. So as far as I was concerned, I needed to have both. So let's just get that back in there. That is the All the Best long box. So I devoured All the Best for a couple of years, and then the first album that I was really looking forward to of Paul McCartney's was Flowers in the Dirt. Again, I bought it on cassette at the time. I was learning to drive in the summer of 1989. Well, I passed my driving test in the summer of 89, just as this album was coming out, and I would be cruising round my hometown as a 17-year-old, window open, middle of summer, 17-year-old with My Brave Face and Distractions blaring out of the car window. I wasn't a cool kid, and I've never changed that outlook on life since. Flowers in the Dirt is an album that will always be very special to me. I've kind of got to the point now, sort of 30 odd years later, where I can look at it a bit more objectively, and I can see the fact that it falls off a cliff face towards the end, does this album. Don't Be Careless Love and Motor of Love are two of my absolute least favourite Paul McCartney songs of his entire career. But I do enjoy the CD version that finishes with Où est le soleil. I prefer the album with that at the end. I always loved that CD. This was the first CD I owned that had a kind of a proper pattern on it. And I thought, what, you can put a pattern on a CD? Amazing, I'd never seen that before. So that is an album that will always have an immensely special place in my heart. And while we're at it, we might as well talk about the Paul McCartney Flowers in the Dirt World Tour Pack. The first time I saw Paul McCartney live was on this tour. It was January 1990 at the Birmingham National Exhibition Centre. Now, I didn't pick this up until just a few years ago, but it contains CDs, therefore it's part of my Paul McCartney CD collection. This is probably worthy of a video in its own right, to be honest, so I'm not going to talk too much about this because I'll probably do a separate video on it. But just to show you that this came with, amongst many other things, it came with another version of Flowers in the Dirt, but also, I'm going to have to put that down for a second, also a small CD single of Party Party! Is it 3-inch CD, I think it is? Yep, there you go. So Party Party, the studio version, which is it's obviously one of the low points of Paul McCartney's career, if we're being honest. I do quite like the live version that is played towards the end of the Put It There documentary, when they're just goofing around in the studio. I do quite like that. But the World Tour Pack, yes, I think I should probably do another video on that at some point, because there's all sorts of fun things in there. Tripping the Live Fantastic, I think we've now entered, in fact, yes, we have now entered the era of me buying these CDs as they came out, because by this point, I had a CD player and I was buying the CDs. So most of these that you'll see now are release day purchases sort of from this point onwards. Tripping the Live Fantastic, a very interesting document of Paul McCartney finally embracing his Beatles past fully in concert. And of course, because I was, as I said, I was at one of the gigs on this tour, I was sort of very interested to have a kind of a souvenir of the gig that I'd been to. And is it the best Paul McCartney live album? No. But, you know, there's some unique stuff on here. I like things like Cracking Up is good. And you've got, I like the rock and roll medley, 20 Flight Rock, Ain't That a Shame. Well, it's not a medley, but they're around the same part of the album. Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying at the end is good. So a very worthy addition to the collection there. Again, a few years later, I picked this up, the Highlights single disc. Whoever owned it before me, S. McLean, presumably, had written their name on it. But again, there was some sort of slightly different edits of things on here. So I was in a completist phase. I decided that I needed to get to the Highlights album. Paul McCartney, Choba BCCP or Schnova, whatever. The Russian album. Paul obviously doing rock and roll classics, intended for the Russian market and then given a wider release a few years later. I've kind of got this theory about Paul McCartney, and I think it holds true to John Lennon, probably the same, that when they've needed to in their careers, for various personal or creative reasons, they've fallen back on the rock and roll that they love. And this was Paul McCartney's first time doing that. I don't think this is as good as Run Devil Run, but I really, really like That's All Right Mama, Summertime, which I don't even think is on the vinyl version, weirdly, but it's my favourite song on here. But it helped Paul get his sort of rock and roll mojo back, and probably playing that kind of stuff live in a studio was certainly did no harm when it came to his attitude to playing live again, which obviously he did a couple of years later after that. We're then on to the start of Paul's classical career, Liverpool Oratorio, to commemorate the 150th anniversary of, I think, was it the 150th anniversary of the Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra? I think. I could have got that wrong. I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments if I have. But this is, I mean, do I ever play this? No, not really. I've played it a couple of times, but it's got there's a nice thick booklet in there all about the story of what it's about, Paul making it with Carl Davies and the Premier, Kiri Takano, etc., performing it. So I kind of think of this more as a kind of a souvenir of a part of his career, rather than something that I would sort of listen to very often. And it's got one of those sponge inserts. The only other place I think I've got one of those sponge inserts is the original 1987 White Album, fat box like that had those foam inserts between each disc. We then move on to Paul McCartney Unplugged, the official bootleg. So of course he did the show for MTV, which a lot of artists were doing at the time. It was a very popular thing, a very fashionable thing to do, was to unplug all your instruments and just have them mic'd up instead and go and do an unplugged session. I believe, again, let me know if I'm wrong, I think Paul was the first one to actually release an album from the series. But it's very laid back. Some of it's maybe a little too laid back. But it's good to have him doing I Lost My Little Girl, obviously the first song that he ever wrote. It's good to see him suddenly doing things like Blackbird and Every Night, which are things that you'd not really seen him do. Well, I'd not seen him do live before. I know he did do Blackbird sort of in the 70s a bit, but that was unknown to me at the time. Ain't No Sunshine's good when they kind of swap around a bit. Paul goes on drums and Hamish comes out front and sings. So it's nice to see him mixing it up a little bit. So it's a nice, easy listen, is that. And I would love to see if Off the Ground gets an archive release. I would hope, because this isn't going to get one in its own right, but I would hope that this is part of it. And a cleaned up video of the show would be great, because it would fit with Off the Ground, with this having Blair Cunningham on drums and Blair obviously then being the drummer on the Off the Ground era as well. So it would fit nicely. We've then got a few CD singles. Now, actually, I'm going to go to this one first. Paul McCartney, All My Trials. So a few live songs from the Flowers in the Dirt era tour. And it's got All My Trials, the old traditional folk song, Sea Moon. It's like a soundcheck version of Sea Moon. And then it's got Paul doing his John Lennon medley from Liverpool, Strawberry Fields Forever, Help, Give Peace a Chance. So I got this when it was first released. I think I got this from Woolworths. And then years and years later found out that actually it was part of a 2-disc set. There was another version here, which does have some duplication. We've got All My Trials, Sea Moon, but then it's got live versions of Mull of Kintyre and Put It There. So I picked this up probably about 10 years ago. I got this, whereas the white version I got on the day of release. And then we're entering Off the Ground era. The first single, certainly in the UK anyway, was Hope of Deliverance. Hope of Deliverance, Big Boys Bickering with all the naughty swearing in it. Long Leather Coat, what a great song Long Leather Coat is. Why did that not make it onto Off the Ground? Kicked Around No More as well, but an interesting choice of style for the CD single. Not that I can say I particularly like it because it's a bit fiddly, but you've got this little plastic clip there, and then that opens up and the disc is inside on there. You can see why that didn't catch on. And then on to Off the Ground itself. Again, I mentioned before with Wings at the Speed of Sound that was kind of the soundtrack of 1993 for me, along with Off the Ground. And as an aside, Zooropa by U2 was the other album of the year for me. Off the Ground, I think this sounds great. It'll be interesting to see how they can make it sound much better in an archive release if it gets one, because it's a very polished, clean sound anyway. And that's probably a criticism of this album that you could level is it a bit too polished? Is it a bit too clean? Possibly so. But you know, it's a fine album. Hope of Deliverance was a great lead-off single. I will hold my head up. I'm not afraid to say this. I will stand up and say I'm a big fan of Biker Like an Icon. I love it. I think it's a great song. Golden Earth Girl is just a complete and utter rewrite of Warm and Beautiful, but it works, it's nice, I enjoy the song. And then you've got the big Come On People at the end, so yeah, good album. We've then got another, he did use the same design of packaging for another single of this era, and that clasp doesn't shut properly anymore. For Come On People. Now, I'm not a fan particularly of the B-sides of this, and I know a lot of people are. For me, it's very safe, Paul McCartney. I Can't Imagine, Keep Coming Back to Love, and Down to the River. I like Paul when he's experimenting, he's trying new things. Even if the experiments don't always work, like I said with Press to Play, at least you can see that he's experimenting, like he still is with McCartney 3. This was all a little bit safe. I think this is the safest Paul McCartney era, which I'm about to completely contradict myself on with the next disc, I think. But this was very, very sort of safe Paul McCartney slipping into his 50s. And then he goes and messes all that up by releasing this. Come On People, Deliverance dub mix. It's Paul McCartney getting into techno and trance and all that kind of stuff with all sorts of remixes. It's interesting. It's not great. It's not the easiest listen. Now, I've heard it said, or seen it read, that the first Fireman album was based partly off these Deliverance, Hope of Deliverance remixes. I can't hear that myself. I've never been able to hear that. If somebody can point me in the direction of what I should listen to make myself hear that, I'll be intrigued to know. But we've still got in the Off the Ground era. There was quite a bit released with different B-sides and such like. And now I never got the off the ground, the like complete works. I didn't get that package, so I've got the B-sides, but in their respective singles. So this is an off the ground single that's got a full version of Cosmically Conscious from the end of the Off the Ground album. Style, Sweet Sweet Memories, and Soggy Noodle. There, so this was a good place to get those other B-sides. Just a very basic package there. Biker Like an Icon CD single. Now again, this has got some unique B-sides in, so again, this is why I bought it. It's got Midnight Special, the old traditional tune, and that is from the Unplugged session. Obviously didn't appear on that album. Things We Said Today and Biker Like an Icon live version, so that's a good one to have. Again, if you're wanting to have different B-sides that you've not got access to anywhere else. We then get Paulie's Live with the ho-ho fun cover. You see what he's trying to do there. Crossing Abbey Road with a dog that looks like Martha, but almost certainly isn't. So Paul is live. Paul is not dead. Paul is live. I like the fact that it's quite a different track listing to Tripping the Life Fantastic, so there's not masses of repetition on here. I didn't really appreciate this album too much. I listened to it again when the reissue came out about 3 years ago, and I enjoyed it a lot more then. But it's good to have things like Drive My Car, All My Loving, We Can Work It Out, so different things to what we'd had on previous live albums. Not too fussed about the stuff towards the end where the show's finished and then you've got Welcome to Soundcheck, Hotel in Benidorm, I Want to Be Your Man's Nice Fun version, but I think the album didn't necessarily need to have those on. And then we're into the Fireman era. So I always forget which order the words are in. Strawberries, Oceans, Ships and Forest. That's it. So this was his first Fireman album. Transpiritual Stomp at the beginning is probably, I think once you've heard that, you've kind of heard the album, really. It's the best thing on the album, and everything else is just kind of poorer versions of, really, in my opinion. So in the history of the Fireman, this is the one I would pick up last if I didn't have any of them. But it's certainly been an interesting phase of his career. We've then got so this isn't Paul McCartney performing this, but this is Paul McCartney's A Leaf, which was from his next classical work. So this is just a simple CD single with it's 9 minutes 56 seconds long, but it's kind of made up of a few different movements there. So again, it's not one that I would really go back to and play often, but it's all kind of connected to his career. So we've then got Standing Stone, A Celebration, so CD single from the Standing Stone era. Okay, that's 6 minute 15 version, which I'm trying to think whether that's different to what would be on here. I think it might be. I think that might be why I bought it in the first place. But Paul McCartney's Standing Stone, his second classical project, that's in a slipcase there, which houses the book and the CD. So that's all in tip-top condition. But again, it's a nice book because these are kind of lesser periods, if you like, of Paul McCartney's career. It needs kind of documenting, really, otherwise it would probably get completely forgotten about. So again, that's nice to have there. And that's okay. Pop that back in there. And we are then moving on to Flaming Pie era. Flaming Pie, one of Paul McCartney's greatest albums since he left the Beatles. I would posit that suggestion with you, ladies and gentlemen. I think there's just certain songs on here that are absolute Beatles level and would have been classics if they'd appeared on something like the White Album or Revolver. So if I was going to pick out a few, I would say Some Days, Calico Skies is just an absolute genius song. Heaven on a Sunday is really, really relaxing and fun. No, not fun, but just really sort of nice and mellow and enjoyable to listen to. Little Willow, absolutely beautiful, beautiful night. Great Day at the End, which was a really early 1970s song that Paul had never really done anything properly with. So absolutely classic album. Love it. We've then got the second Fireman album, Rushers. This is by far an improvement on the first Fireman album, I think. This is a really enjoyable listen all the way through. It's very, very nice. If you want some... It's good to sit and properly listen to it, but it's also, and I don't mean this as an insult, it's really good background music. Although it's good to listen to in its own right. This is a really enjoyable album. Paul McCartney did actually publish on Twitter about a year ago. He just published a photograph of a postbox that was built into a wall with sort of leaves surrounding it. Very nice sort of English country village type of scene. And when you zoomed in on it and turned it round, it's actually that. So that, if you've ever wondered what that is from a photograph of a English postbox set in a wall with sort of trees and whatever around it. You can see a little bit of the ivy there on the back, but that full image is there online now. We've then got Linda McCartney, Wide Prairie. I've included this because Paul McCartney's all over this. He produced it, he appears on it in various places. This one, promotional copy, not for sale. I don't know, can't remember how I acquired it, but it's always nice when you get a promo copy. It's good, it's not great, but there are some fun things on here. The White Coated Man is a good... it's good kind of social commentary about sort of lab testing and that kind of thing. The Light Comes From Within is so much fun as a song. You look at the title, The Light Comes From Within, and you're immediately thinking of like maybe George Harrison and Indian mysticism and all that kind of thing. And then you put it on and it is absolutely nothing like. It is Linda in full venti, sweary mode, having a go at somebody, I don't know who, but she certainly does not like that person at all. I like Cow as well, which is, it's just very basic kind of Bon Tempi style keyboard, but it's got a serious message about the meat industry in there, but it's done as a very kind of childlike message, is the kind of way that it's put across. But I do enjoy that album. It's a good listen. We've then got Working Classical. Again, Paul back into classical music mode, but different this time. We've got A Leaf there, which is, we saw the CD single before from this, and this is different in that some of these tracks are Paul doing classical reworkings of some of his own songs. So things like Junk, My Love, Maybe I'm Amazed, Calico Skies, Golden Earth Girl, Some Days, She's My Baby, The Lovely Linda. So it is, I don't think it's quite as grand a project as some of his other classical works. This one feels a little bit more kind of intimate string quartet-y kind of things. But again, it's good to see Paul constantly throughout his career dabbling in other areas of music. We've then got Run Devil Run. Now I posted a photograph on Twitter the night before now. I don't know when this is going to go live, but the previous day, of all these CDs on my floor, and I got praise from somebody for how good a condition my Run Devil Run is in. Well, you know, you've got to look after these things. But this was bought on release day, despite how great condition it looks. It's a slipcase, Run Devil Run, and then you've got the second interview disc there. Now I was saying earlier on about how I think Paul and John both kind of slipped into the rock and roll roots when they maybe needed it, and I think he needed it in the 80s because he'd had an absolute critical hammering, sort of pipes of peace, then to Broad Street, then to Press to Play. He'd been panned for kind of 3 or 4 years solid, and I think he probably just maybe needed to go back to his roots, get his confidence back up as a singer and a live performer, and I think that worked for him. And And this obviously, this was his first big project after Linda passed away. And again, I think he probably needed it at the time. He needed to. It's kind of like getting back on the saddle, isn't it? After a fall, you've got to get yourself in with something that you know you can be familiar with, you can take comfort with, and I think this was a perfect project for him at the time. And a damn fine album, if I might add. No Other Baby, 4 minutes and 17 seconds long. My phrase about No Other Baby has always been, No Other Baby does nothing for 4 minutes and 17 seconds, but it does it magnificently. That's how I've always thought about No Other Baby, an absolutely beautiful song from a great album. Okay, I've just cleared some space for the next lot to come out, so off we go again. I've got a load of CD singles to go through now, roughly in order, but not quite. Paul McCartney Birthday, so this is from the Flowers in the Dirt tour, and it's got live versions of Birthday, Good Day Sunshine, P.S. Love Me Do, and Let Him In. P.S. Love Me Do, well, I think I mentioned something else earlier, has been the low point of McCartney's career, but there's the other contender for it. Not a great tune at all. This is an interesting one, the Smoking Mojo filters, so this is Paul McCartney, Paul Weller and Noel Gallagher from September 1995 from the sessions for the Help War Child charity album and their cover of Come Together. So this has got some other stuff on it as well. So it's got the Smoking Mojo filters come together, but it's also got Beautiful South, Dodgy and Black Grape on there. So that was a high charting single in the UK at the time, back in '95. This one, Ubu Jubu, Ecology. Now this, my uncle picked this up for me in America, but I think it would have been in Florida, for 1 cent. It was like you buy something else, you can have this for 1 cent. So this has got obviously the Ubu Jubu radio series that Paul did in the 1990s. This is one of the episodes from that. And it's got Looking for Changes, Peace in the Neighbourhood, Wildlife, Mother Nature's Son, Off the Ground, Cow, How Many People, and We All Stand Together on there. Not exactly full versions of, but nice little sort of snippets there as one of his series. I'd love to see the full thing of this get a proper release one day. I imagine because of rights issues, it's probably not feasible to expect that any time or ever, but it would be a nice thing to have. We've then got The Long and Winding Road. So this was an HMV import. So this was classed as a European release. And again, it's from that same 89-90 World Tour. And it's got The Long and Winding Road, Sea Moon, Mull of Kintyre, and Put It There on there. So that was a nice little sort of non-standard CD that you have normally seen in the UK that I managed to get hold of. And here is the My Brave Face single from 1989, the lead single from Flowers in the Dirt. Just open that up for you there. And that has got My Brave Face, Flying to My Home. That's a great B-side. It's one of those where Paul's putting on there you go, it's falling out. Paul's putting on one of those voices that's it's not really used in many other places that I can think of. A bit like how Bob Dylan has different voices on different albums. Paul suddenly threw in a new voice there for Flying to My Home, but it's a good song. It's got I'm Gonna Be a Wheel Someday from the Russian album sessions and a live version of Ain't That a Shame on the My Brave Face CD. Figure of Eight. Oh, there's so many different versions of Figure of Eight that came out. And here is one of the 7-inch CD singles. We've got Figure of Eight, Long Winding Road and Loveliest Thing on there. So that's a nice one to have. And I've got another version of, I showed you the Party single as part of the World Tour Pack. This is one that I had already. That came when I bought it. It came in this plastic sleeve. So we've already shown you that one, but there's Party as a standalone there. We've then got, I don't know why, I have no idea of the reason why, but I have 2 copies of this. This is the This One CD single. I can only assume that I bought it once and then bought it again, forgetting that I already had it. But this has got this one and B-sides I Want to Cry, The First Stone and I'm in Love Again. So it's a nice cover, this one, this Swan. And then I've got another one that I happen to have 2 copies of. This is the Paul McCartney Figure of 8 Special Collector's 3-inch CD. And I've got another version in here that came in, again, in a plastic wallet. I think the reason why I ended up with the second one is, you can see from the post-it note I've put on the back, won't rip. So all my CDs are ripped into iTunes. This one wouldn't rip. It's an interesting little disc that comes off there. But I couldn't get this one to rip, so I ended up buying it again. Unfortunately, my second copy, perfect rip. So that one's all nicely sealed. I don't want anything to happen to that. I might sell this. It plays in a CD player. It just won't rip onto a computer for whatever reason. So I've got 2 of those there. We've then got a few Flaming Pie era CDs. So we've got Young Boy. I've probably got 2. They came as sort of 2 different versions. So let's pull this. There's 2 Beautiful Nights. There's 2 World Tonights, and there's 2 Young Boys on CD there, with Looking for You as a B-side, and all of these CD singles came with sort of excerpts from the Ubu Jubu radio series. So we've got that on there, and then this was the other single, which has got Broomstick as a B-side, which is another great song. That could Broomstick have maybe replaced one of the sort of jam songs on Flaming Pie? Probably would have made the album slightly better, I would suggest. Then we've got The World Tonight. Again, there's 2 versions of that. So each of these came in like a normal CD case and the other one in a CD single case. We've got Used to Be Bad, Pointlessly as a B-side on there, since it's already on the album, and Ubu Jubu Part 3. This one has got Really Love You, again, Pointlessly, as a B-side, and Ubu Jubu Part 4. So that's The World Tonight. And then Beautiful Night was I think this was the final single from Flaming Pie. 2 versions of that. Again, one in a CD single, one in a normal CD case. We've got Love Come Tumbling Down, which is that's a decent song. And then we've got 10 minutes of Ubu Jubu Part 5. And then we've got Same Love as a B-side on there. I always remember this was released around about Christmas of '97 as a single in the UK. And I remember Chris Evans who was Radio 1 at the time, I remember him playing it and absolutely raving about it and sort of saying, come on UK, we've got to get Beautiful Night to Christmas #1. Never happened, never got anywhere near. But it was nice to see that Paul was getting sort of big shout outs on Radio 1 still at that time. I've then got a couple of Linda CDs from the Wide Prairie era. So this, we saw the album earlier on. This is just like a single that's got Wide Prairie, Cow and Lustful Glory on there. So that's nice. And then we've got The Light Comes From Within, handily with the parental guidance because of those dodgy lyrics that are in there. Light Comes From Within, I Got Up, and Seaside Woman, Wings Era, of course. So that's a nice couple of CD singles. I had these before I ever had the Wide Prairie album, so when I got Wide Prairie I was of course familiar with a few songs that were on it. Oh dear. Oh, we've hit a... You know, if you're going to try and collect these things, sometimes you've got to collect the things that you don't really want, but they're all part of the collection. Voice, Heather Mills featuring Paul McCartney. Awful. It is dreadful. Let's not pretend anything different. It is terrible. But when you're in the mode of trying to collect everything, it's on the list, you know. But it is, yeah. It's crap, basically. It's awful. But you got to have it. You got to have it. We've then got a couple of No Other Baby singles. So there is Paul McCartney sat on a beach as a child with Betty Robbins, who would have been, well, was she the sister of? She was Paul's cousin, anyway. And her son Ted, he's a well-known actor in the UK, actor, comedian. So young Ted there. But Paul McCartney, No Other Boy, Brown-Eyed Handsome Man as a mono single. And they also issued it as a normal stereo single with Brown Eyed Handsome Man and Fabulous as a B-side. So that was good to get those two. Nice looking CD there, made to look like a vinyl record. More CD singles. We're now moving into the Driving Rain era, or Thriving Pain. From a Lover to a Friend. And this is the one that's got David Kahn remixes on there. So again, Driving Pain, I didn't actually mean to say that. Driving Rain is an album that it's too long, I think. You could shave 20 minutes off that and make a much better album out of it. Again, if I was ranking Paul McCartney albums, it would be down near the bottom somewhere. But at least I do appreciate, again, like with Press to Play, that he was experimenting and he was trying to experiment with sound still. So that was good to see. But From a Lover to a Friend, it's not one of his great singles, let's be honest. Tropic Island Hum, Paul McCartney, boom, 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 and We All Stand Together. Introducing Whirl the Squirrel and celebrating the 20th anniversary of We All Stand Together. I mean, we're still kind of waiting for all of this stuff to properly come out, aren't we? We keep getting little dribs and drabs of it every now and again. But I know people knock We All Stand Together. Tropic Island Hum doesn't get knocked as much because it's not as well known, but they're intended to be kids' songs for a kids' animation, and for that purpose, I think they're perfect. You know, it wasn't trying to write another Eleanor Rigby or Hey Jude for that. For what it is, it's great. And to knock it is kind of picking on a pointless target, I think, really. Moving on to the Chaos and Creation era, Fine Line. That's a great single. Fine Line is a great single. Comfort of Love was the B-side. That was pretty decent as well. But we're kind of starting to get into the era of not far from when CD singles started to sort of fade away a little bit. But also from that era is Jenny Wren. Maxi CD includes the single Jenny Wren, I Want You to Fly, and This Loving Game. So, I've got the receipt in here. How much did I pay for this? I do like finding these receipts. It's like little snapshots of history. Sometimes you see them and you think, oh, I bought a bag of Maltesers at the same time, did I? I paid $2.99 for this on, when was it? Do we care? Probably not. But it was the 21st of November 2005 when I bought that. I presume that was pretty much release day. I can't imagine why I would have hung around in buying it. And then I've got two versions of Memory Almost Full. One of them is just this that came free with the Daily Mail. Now, I would never normally buy the Daily Mail. I prefer Andrex or other sort of brands of toilet tissue. But Memory Almost Full, I personally love this album. I didn't buy the Daily Mail actually for this. I think I got this for 10p in a charity shop. Memory Almost Full, despite the fact that the production is awful and it's just way too loud, I think there's some great songs on here. And I'm a big fan of Memory Almost Full. So while we're in Memory Almost Full mode, I'll pull out my proper copy, which is this. Which is nice picture of Paul there. And this opens up. I've got to make sure that nothing falls out when I do this. The number of times I've shown things on video that have then just sort of all collapsed and fallen in a heap to the floor. Memory Almost Full. This has got a second disc in with a few additional songs and Paul doing an interview about the album. So that's a nice package. But it does mean that kind of I'm left without just a regular CD of Memory Almost Full, because I've got this and I've got this Daily Fail version that I got from the charity shop for 10p. But again, managed to keep the hype sticker there. And when you open that out fully, let's just do this. It opens up nicely into the shape of a cross. A little bit like my Omen Trilogy DVD set does, but that's a slightly scarier cross. So that's nice. Let's see whether I can get this back in the order that it came. No, I don't think I can. I will put that aside separately, and I'll put that back together properly in my own time, rather than yours. Why this has suddenly appeared now, I don't know, but I've gone to it. So Paul's not actually on this, but I thought it's closely enough connected with his career for me to think of it as part of my Paul McCartney CD collection. This is what came out last year for the 50th anniversary of Ram, and this was Denny Sywell and Fernando Perdomo who put this together. Obviously Denny Sywell being the original drummer on Ram. And this was it's a remake of the album, which on the one hand you might think, well, why bother? On the other hand, there's some nice versions on here, especially of the Another Day B-side, Oh Woman Oh Why, obviously part of the Ram sessions, featuring Eric Dover and Lauren Lee. Now, Lauren Lee is absolutely fantastic singing Oh Woman Oh Why on this. I'll thoroughly recommend having a listen to that if you've not heard it. A few more CD singles. They've definitely gone out of order chronologically. Put It There, obviously from the Flowers in the Dirt era. And this was great because you then started to get Paul issuing some sort of things that we hadn't really seen much before. Mama's Little Girl. Now, the version of Mama's Little Girl that appeared in the Red Rose Speedway archive is far better than this. This is kind of drenched in reverb. That one isn't, and that one is like really in your face and sounds fantastic. And I wouldn't really go back to this version again after that. But I'm not quite sure the origins of that cover, but it's an interesting cover, and that's a good CD single. We've then got Ever Present Past, which has got live versions of Only Mama Knows and Dance Tonight as B-sides. Nice picture of Paul's on the back there. But this is another good picture of Paul. So that's a good one. Again, I've got the receipt in there. I'm not going to go looking at all these receipts to see when I bought them. We ain't got time for that, folks, have we? But Ever Present Past. And then, now, is this official or is this somebody who's bootlegged this? I think it's official, but I'm prepared to be persuaded otherwise. This is Hope, or Hope for the Future as we know it better as. And I think I actually got this before Hope for the Future was properly released. I mean, it does look kind of very... whether it was just literally put like this together, put together like this and sent out to radio stations, for example, promo only, not for sale, maybe so. Or did somebody just knock it up in the back bedroom? I really don't know, to be honest. But that has got the song Hope for the Future on it, before it kind of got any other releases. And then we've got two versions of the Amoeba Gig. So again, there was a Daily Fail version, Paul McCartney live in Los Angeles, which again I think I picked up from a charity shop shortly afterwards because I wasn't going to go and buy that rag. But there is a lot of good songs from that particular show. And then there's this one, which you've kind of got to put the effort in to read the album title here. But we've got, so where is it? We've got Paul McCartney. We've got Amoebas Secret, as it was known when it was re-released a few years ago on vinyl. It was then called Amoeba Gig. But Amoeba's Secret is the title that this went by. And it's slightly different track listings on each, slightly different edits, so I wanted to have both of those. And then, of course, when it got reissued 3 years ago, I think it was different again to either of those in terms of the way that it was put together. So, where do we go next? Oh, let's go to this pile here next. We've got Grand Dude. Hey, Grand Dude. So we've had two stories so far from Paul McCartney over the last couple of years or so about the hero Grand Dude and his chillers grandchildren. So this was the first one, Hey Grand Dude, followed by last year Grand Dude's Green Submarine. So I mean, it's just kind of 10-minute stories. I'm looking forward to this because my granddaughter is soon going to be of an age where bedtime stories are a thing. So I'll try and see if I can palm these ones off as bedtime stories. But there is little bits of kind of incidental Paul music on there that you ain't going to get anywhere else. So again, if you're kind of collecting Paul McCartney music on CD, there's bits and pieces on here that you're not going to find anywhere else. Let me just flip this pile over. and then all of a sudden it will become a lot more chronological than it is the other way around. We're going back about 20 years now to the Liverpool Sound Collage. So this was an interesting little, one of Paul's little sort of side ventures that featured other people as well. I think there was Gruff Rhys from the Super Furry Animals was involved, and Youth, who he's worked with as the fireman, is on here as well. Engineered by Paul Hicks, I notice, who now does a lot of the John Lennon work, especially in terms of remixes and such like. So it's, I guess, not the easiest listen. It is literally a sound collage, so it's a little bit like an album of Revolution 9. It's rumoured, no idea whether it's true or not, that Paul might have snuck little bits of Carnival of Light onto here. We don't know. Will we ever know? Well, if they eventually release Carnival of Light, we could maybe go back to this and cross-check it and see whether we can hear anything from that in here. But it's not something you're going to play regularly. But again, it's one that's you kind of need to have in the collection if you're collecting this stuff. Here is Driving Rain, Thriving Pain, the regular CD. There's nothing here that you won't be aware of, probably. Why Paul chose that as the album cover, who knows? Who knows? But like I say, I think you could shave 20 minutes off that and make it into a much better album than it already is. Wingspan, Hits and History, from around similar time to Driving Rain. So 2 CDs, the first one being hits, the second one being a little bit deeper cuts, but there's a few things on here that you're not going to have elsewhere. So for example, you've got the Bit Bop and Hey Diddle, where it's Paul and Linda sort of sat outside up in Scotland near Campbelltown, just sort of playing those couple of songs. So that's on here, that's good to have. And obviously it's made to accompany the Wingspan documentary. So you've got things like this single version of Take It Away is on here as well. So if you want a clean single version of that, it's on here. We've then got Back in the World. So in America they got Back in the US. Over here we got Back in the World. So this is what I bought on release day. And I think this is a really good Paul McCartney live album. He was still in really good voice at this point. It's a really nice set list that he's got going on here. I love the version of Calico Skies that he performed on this tour, where it's kind of got kind of a marching band kind of rhythm to it. That's really nice. So Back in the World we got over here. Over in America you've got Back in the US. So I picked this up a few years later because again I was looking at what differences there were. There's a few differences. One of the main ones is that you've got Vanilla Skies on here somewhere. Vanilla Sky. They're the theme tune to the Tom Cruise movie that I've still never seen actually. But there was just enough difference on that for it to be worth me picking that up as well as Back in the World. We've then got Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. So my version comes in this slipcase. And I love this. This is the ambigram. Paul McCartney. Flip it round. Paul McCartney. I'm sure you knew that, but there might be some people out there who've not seen this before. You never know. But how they work kind of messes with my head a little bit. But Paul McCartney, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. Fantastic photo by Mike McCartney, Paul's brother there. And it's great to go to Fourth Lynn Road in Liverpool where this was taken, where Paul grew up, and you can stand at that window and you can look out into the garden. You can look at that bit of the garden and just imagine, you know, this is where Mike's standing, where I am now, looking at that little bit of garden there. So that's nice. This is the 2 disc version. The second disc is a DVD that's got Between Chaos and Creation documentary. It's got the Fine Line video, and it's got some animated films on for certain songs. But it's a mighty fine album, is Chaos and Creation. Definitely, I think one of his kind of modern day classics. Great album. We've then got the final Fireman album. Unless, Paul, if you want to do some more Fireman albums, that would be great. But we've not had any since 2008's Electric Arguments. Another fine album, Paul experimenting again and coming up with some great sounds. I think Sing the Changes is a 21st century Paul McCartney classic. that's on here. Managed to keep the hype sticker again. What I didn't get, and what I regret not getting, is the big box that comes in like the cloth bag of this, where you get the stems of songs. You can sort of do your own remixes of it. There's all kinds of remixes of the songs, which I've since managed to acquire digitally. But if there's ever a re-release of that, I would love to get hold of that. But it feels unlikely that will ever happen, I think. But you never know. If there was, I'd love to see a Fireman archive edition. Let's have the 3 Fireman albums together in an archive collection, because I don't think any of them are going to get one on their own right. But you could put things like that in there, so that would be good if that happened. I would also like a Paul McCartney classical album archive collection, because then you could put, as well as the ones we've already seen, and at least one more still to come, you could put Ecce Cor Meum in there. I probably listen to Gracia, that's on here, probably more than any other Paul McCartney classical work. I think that's a really nice piece of music. Very uplifting and a happy piece of music. But Ecce Cor Meum there, another of Paul's classical albums. And then we get the controversial Kisses on the Bottom. I like this album. I think it's a real nice, easy listen. And I mean, I'm not normally one for what you class as easy listening, but I like something that is an easy listen now and again, and this is very much it. Inchworm is really nice, with its built-in maths lesson. You've got My Valentine, which is obviously a new song there, and I think recently Michael Bublé's done a version of it, which I haven't heard yet, because that's not somebody whose music I would go chasing, but Paul McCartney's produced this new version, so I will have a listen to it at some point, see what I think of it. But this is Paul's venture into the sort of the standards catalogue, which various other people have done. This is Paul's attempt at it, and it's nice. And there's live Kisses as well, which I've got on DVD, a good live version of that album. But then after that, we're moving forward to New from 2013. This is just the regular CD version. What do I feel about New? I think it's got a good run of songs on here from Queenie Eye, Early Days, New, Appreciate is a really good 4-song run. But other than that, Alligator is a really good song. I like that, but I'm not that fussed. It's not an album I would go back to and listen to often. But I remember the excitement, obviously, in 2013 when it was announced and we knew it was coming out. It was an exciting time. And then about a year, well, maybe not a year later, well, ish, we got this. We got the new, what is it called? Is it a collector's edition or deluxe edition? And it's got bonus audio there. It's got a few extra tunes on there. It has got bonus DVD with various live versions of the era. So this is a nice little package. And this is the kind of thing where I think for certain things that might not get an archive collection of their own, I would like to see reissues done in this kind of expanded format. So that might be, let's say, for example, Twin Freaks. As much as I would absolutely love to see a reissue of that, I hope we'll get it at some point, but we'll never get an archive edition. But some kind of expanded edition like this of Twin Freaks would be great. We then moved on from, after New, his next album, his next studio album, Egypt Station. So I've got a couple of versions here. This is the version that I bought on release day, with this green elastic band around it. I'm a massive fan of Egypt Station. I've talked about it extensively in other videos, but this album was just so much better than it could have been. And it's an album that I take a lot of enjoyment from. And then they went and brought out the Explorers edition, as well as the Travellers edition, which I didn't buy, that big suitcase. That was a step too far for me. But the Explorers edition, which has got a second disc, with a few additional songs and then a few live versions of songs from Egypt Station. But I really like the artwork for Egypt Station. I think is a beautiful thing. Really enjoy that. We then got a reissue of Amoeba Gig. So we saw these two a little while ago. We've now got Amoeba Gig as of 2019. And like I say, slightly different configuration again. So that was a nice reissue to have. We need more of these reissues, Paul. It's been 3 years now since we last had one. So I hope that concept hasn't ended, because it was a good run. Maybe COVID's had an effect, I don't know. We've then got Paul's most recent classical work, Ocean's Kingdom, which was, I think this was sort of billed more as a ballet than anything. And what I was quite pleased about when I bought this, I didn't realise until I bought it, was that it came with a download code, which I'm going to cover up because it's my code, not yours. Even though I've already used it, so you probably couldn't do anything with it. It's a download code to the like the live premiere, which I think was in New York. Does it say on here? Yeah, an exclusive live recording of the world premiere gala performance in New York by the New York City Ballet Orchestra. So you get a download of a live version of the album with that. So Ocean's Kingdom, not my favourite, but again, it's a very worthy addition to the Paul McCartney classical collection. We then enter the wild and wonderful world of McCartney 3. Well, I've got a few versions here, folks, so let's go through these. I've got my regular McCartney 3. Actually, that one's sealed. This is the one, McCartney 3. I was one of the ones who saw a message a week before the release date saying, Morrison's Supermarket have started putting it on the shelves. So I did like an hour-and-a-half round trip to get this about a week early, and I found one on the shelf, just down at the bottom shelf. All right, I'm having that. Managed to get hold of it about a week early. I do enjoy McCartney 3. I think it's again like Egypt Station. It's like I find this such a bonus to have, and the fact that it's really good as well is another bonus. I've got another sealed version actually here. I think this is based on this is because of the package. I got packaged from Capitol Records. I did some competitions where I gave quite a bit of stuff away, but there was the dice packs, there was cassettes, there was all sorts of things in, and I've given away a few of the CDs, but there's one of them left there. I also got the Japanese SHM CD, Super High Material. I did a video actually where I compared this to the regular McCartney 3 to see if I could see any differences, and I was surprised with the results. I'll try and remember to pop a link to that video if you want to see it, where I did a comparison of the Japanese version compared to the regular version. And this also came with, I'm just going to move my camera around. Can you see that poster up there, McCartney 3 poster up on the wall? That came with the Japanese edition, with that one. And also, I've included this purely because it has a CD of the album in, but the package that I got from Capitol Records also has the piano, vocal and guitar book for McCartney 3, if you want to learn how to play. Let's pick one at random. If you want to learn how to play Lavatory Lil, we've got the chords there for it, but it does include in the back another copy of the album. So, in theory, that's part of my Paul McCartney CD collection, so I thought I would include that here. We then moved on to 3 imagined, so reworkings, remixes, remakes of songs from McCartney 3. And we've got 3 imagined there, with some interesting versions on there. And oh yes, I've got the vinyl version up there. I thought I remembered that was up there. But that was an interesting thing to get. I don't know whether that's something that Paul would ever consider doing for any of his other albums. We will find out one day. Well, the pile's got a lot smaller. We've got a few to get through, but we are getting towards it, folks. There was then Pure McCartney, which came out in, what year was it? 2016 this came out. Now, the official story is that somebody who works for Paul had kind of put together a playlist for the car, and they thought it sounded good and they put it out. I don't know whether I believe that, to be honest. But this is the 4-disc set. And for me, the most useful things on here are those things that have got remasters that we haven't had an archive collection for yet. So I think there's a couple of things from the likes of Back to the Egg, London Town, where you get to hear what they might sound like in an archive collection. So there's nothing stunningly new here for any genuine McCartney fan, but it's a nice overall package. If I didn't have all this other stuff, this would be a great listen, but it's not something that I would ever play usually because I've got it all elsewhere. We've also got Good Evening New York City. Well, I would probably rank this as the least important Paul McCartney live album of all. And it's noticeable that we haven't had one since. Are we going to ever get another Paul McCartney live album? I would suspect not, but you never know. So it's a good track listing. You cannot argue with the track listing. But there's been a lot of criticism over the years about maybe a bit of auto-tune on this album, for example. But it's a nice booklet. There's some nice photos of the era and some nice write-ups of what was going on. So it's a nice thing to have. And we've got a lot of things now where these are things that Paul appears on. A lot of these are. So these are not necessarily Paul McCartney CDs, but if you're interested in things that he's done throughout his career and different albums he's appeared on, a lot of these would be potentially you've already got, or they may be of interest. So McGear, Paul's brother Mike McCartney, Mike McGear, whichever name he's going by at various times. This was a reissue from 2019. I didn't know the album until I got this, but this is kind of... it's often described as like the Lost Wings album because the instrumentation is pretty much all Wings. From the 1974 incarnation of Wings. Paul's produced it. You can hear Paul on bits of backing vocals, for example. So it is the Lost Wings album. But it's nice to have. I've enjoyed listening to this over the last few years. There's a song called Norton on here, track 3. Now, I like Half Man, Half Biscuit, who are a Liverpool band that, I say from the 80s, I don't know whether they were around in the back end of the 70s or not, but they're kind of like a satirical comedy kind of band, but played as very straight music. Norton reminds me very much of Half Man, Half Biscuit. Whether they were inspired or not, or influenced or not by McGear, I'm not sure. I would like to know the answer to that. Another one that's got Paul connections is this James McCartney double EP. So he'd released a couple of EPs. This brings them together into one. Now, Paul produces this. He's not mentioned as appearing, but I suspect he's probably on there somewhere. But he's kind of all over this album in terms of his production and being in the credits and all that kind of thing. There's a good cover version of Neil Young's Old Man on there, which I really like. There's a good song called Angel on there. It's not something I would listen to often, but there's a few good tunes on there that are worth having a listen of. I picked this one out, Travis, who were a band that I followed a lot back in the day. Now, you might be thinking, why the heck's he brought this up? Flowers in the Window. This is their CD single. This is from their third album, called The Man Who. And the reason that I've picked this out is purely because Fran Healy, who's the lead singer of Travis, has gone on record as saying that when they appeared on the Jules Holland show in, I think it was November 1999, Paul McCartney was on the same episode. It was when he was promoting Run Devil Run. And Fran and Paul were talking, and Fran mentioned that they'd got this song, but they couldn't quite finish it. They couldn't work out how to end it. And Paul helped them. So Paul helped them write it. He's not credited as writer on here, but in effect, that is a song that is co-written by Paul McCartney. He shaped the ending of that song. And so I thought probably worth mentioning as a sort of a fringe item in my Paul McCartney CD collection. Now that's what I call Music 4. This is a recent reissue of this album from 1984. And disc 1, track 1 is Paul McCartney, No More Lonely Nights special dance mix. So that's the only copy that I have of on CD of that song. So I think it was on the Paul McCartney Collection version of, was it Pipes of Peace? Or was it Broad Street? It was included on there, but that's the only copy that I've got. Now there's this Uncut Magazine. This is an Uncut Magazine from, I think, about 2006. I'm not sure if it says anywhere. But this is called Paul McCartney's Glastonbury Groove, Something for the Weekend. And it does have unique Paul McCartney content on that I haven't got anywhere else. Track 8, Temporary Secretary Radio Slave Mix. So this is a remix of Temporary Secretary, obviously. I don't know if it exists anywhere else, but this is certainly the only place that I've got that. So if you're looking to get hold of sort of obscure stuff that you haven't got anywhere else, that might be something that you want to have a look for. I recently did a video on this. Now that's what I call 12-inch 80s Remixed. It only came out a few weeks ago, and I'm sticking to my guns here. I've had a few people doubt me in the comments of my video that I did on this, but this is the only place where you can find on CD. The very last track on the last disc is Paul McCartney, No More Lonely Nights extended version, which runs to about 6.5 minutes. There was also a long version that had been released on CD before. This hasn't. This does not appear anywhere else on any other official CD other than here. And I stand by that comment. I've been challenged on it a few times, but I think people are generally thinking of the long version, not the extended version. Very fringe item. I wondered whether to include this or not, because Paul, to my knowledge, doesn't actually appear on here, but it was very much a kind of sanctioned, authorised thing, the art of McCartney, or the McCartney of, as I sometimes call it. Cover versions of Paul McCartney songs. I like some of these. I think Heart do a good version of Letting Go. Jamie Cullum does a good version of Every Night. There's Brian Wilson doing Wanderlust. There's Bob Dylan doing a very Bob Dylan-esque version of Things We Said Today. So a lot of it's guff that I'm not going to go back and listen to, but there's a few bits and pieces on there that I do quite like. The last big box set before I go on to the last little pile of CDs. Concert for George. This is the reissue from a few years ago. Obviously from November 2002, a year after George passed away. Great concert, fantastic concert featuring all sorts of great people. Monty Python were there, Jeff Lynne, Tom Petty, Paul McCartney, Eric Clapton, and Paul appears on the 2-disc CD set, so it's part of my CD collection as well as having the video content. But of course you've got in here, where is it, For You Blue, Something, and All Things Must Pass, performed by Paul. And if I remember rightly, the next song, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, I seem to remember Paul was on piano on that, if I remember rightly. But that's a beautiful set. And again, it's got some unique McCartney content. We're down to the last few. This is it. This is all that's left. And a few of these are ones that you'll see have been transferred over into my new wallets. Because remember I said my Beatles and Paul McCartney collections were exempt from this process, but a few have made it in there. This is a CD that was from the NME, the New Musical Express, around about 1990 it was. And it's kind of, it's people of the era doing Elvis covers. And Paul McCartney is on here. It's Now or Never. There is a version on here. And you can actually see there's a little cartoon version of Paul there in the middle, still getting top billing on things, which was good. The Last Temptation of Elvis, songs from his movies. So that's another one for the, if you've been a completist about it, it's a good one to pick up. Now the very first CD that I showed in this video, which for now seems about 3 weeks ago, was The Family Way. But before I had the actual Family Way, I had this, which I got probably in the mid-90s. And this is something that, who knew the world needed this? Well, it doesn't need it really. It's like a cover version of The Family Way by Carl Aubert on guitar, Claire Marchand, Andre Mouzan, and the Claudel String Quartet, doing their version of Paul McCartney's The Family Way. For no obvious reason. And I wouldn't listen to it now because I would rather listen to the actual Paul McCartney album. So we're now down to these, and these are all albums where Paul McCartney appears, probably uniquely. So I think most of the things on here, if you haven't got these CDs, you're not going to have these particular things. This was a Noel Coward tribute album. It's called 20th Century Blues, The Songs of Noel Coward. And it's various artists doing covers of Noel Coward. I really like Don't Put Your Daughter on the Stage, Mrs. Worthington by Vic Reeves. That's really good. But on here we have got, and I'm trying to find where it is, A Room with a View by Paul McCartney is there. And that's a nice cover version. It's very much in his kind of You Gave Me the Answer, Goodnight Princess kind of mode. But of course that's kind of not too dissimilar from what Noel Coward would have been doing himself. So that's a good one to have. The soundtrack to Vanilla Sky, because this has got the actual studio version of Paul McCartney Vanilla Sky on there. Like I said earlier, a movie that I've never seen. I must get around to watching that sometime. Ethel and Ernest, this was an animated film that came out a few years ago. And you've got on here Paul, who does the closing theme to the movie, In the Blink of an Eye, which is I would say a nice latter-day Paul McCartney song, one that didn't get much attention at all. There is also, and I don't think it's on the soundtrack album, it's not, there is Walking in the Park with Eloise. There is a version of that in the movie at some point, but I don't think it doesn't make it onto this soundtrack album for whatever reason. We looked at the Smoking Mojo Filters earlier with their cover of Come Together, Paul McCartney, Noel Gallagher, Paul Weller. Well, this is the album that came from. This is the Help War Child charity album from 1995 that features Smoking Mojo Filters, Come Together. This album by Lulu, called Together, is from 2002. And it's Lulu doing songs as duets with other people. And track 3 is called Inside Thing. Lulu and Paul McCartney. Inside Thing, brackets, Let Him In. So you've got a song called Inside Thing, which I wasn't familiar with. I don't know whether it was a new song for this album or whether it already existed. But you kind of got Lulu singing that song called Inside Thing, and then it keeps cutting to Paul McCartney, who'd recorded a new various sections of Let Him In. So it's like a mashup of two songs. Paul just keeps coming in and out of the song. But that's an interesting listen. This is probably quite an important album in Paul McCartney's career, or the gig was an important gig in Paul McCartney's career. This is the Prince's Trust 10th anniversary birthday party from, I think it was 1986. So Paul is on here towards the end doing Get Back and Long Tall Sally. And it was the first time, first time for a while that Paul had appeared on stage. He'd done Live Aid and did this, but obviously since 1979 he'd done pretty much nothing live. And he did say afterwards, I've got an interview where he says about that this kind of set the thing going in his brain again about, I want to get out there and I want to play live. So this is very much responsible for part of that thought of Paul's. So it's very 80s is that album, but it's worth having for the kind of historical value of that. We've then got this album by Steve Martin and the Steep Canyon Rangers. Steve Martin, yes, that's Steve Martin, the film star. I think, with as little as I know, to me, sounds like one of the great banjo players of the world. And he's been doing it for 50-odd years or more, or probably a lot more. And on here, track 3 is a song called Best Love, sung by Paul McCartney. A nice little sort of country banjo style ditty. So that's worth having. The album itself is great anyway, whether even without the Paul McCartney song. Well worth having. We've then got this, Brand New Boots and Panties. This is a tribute album to Ian Dury, of course, of Ian Dury and the Blockheads. And on here you'll find I'm Partial to Your Abracadabra by Paul McCartney. And Paul's obviously mentioned there as well. So I don't think you'll find that anywhere else. Paul doing a cover of an Ian Dury song. This is another movie that I've never seen. The In-Laws. I don't know anything about it. All I know is that Paul McCartney has 2 songs on here that you wouldn't get anywhere else. So we've got track 1 is A Love For You. So we've had a couple of different versions of A Love For You. This is a unique mix of A Love For You, different to any that you've had on any archive collection, for example. And track 4, Live and Let Die, is a live version, which I think is from One Hand Clapping. So again, it's different to any version of Live and Let Die that you've got an official copy of, I would imagine. Because the stuff that we've had from One Hand Clapping in the archive collection hasn't included Live and Let Die, but it's on here. I've included Thriller in my Paul McCartney CD collection, obviously because of The Girl Is Mine. The Girl Is Mine, it's not a great song, but it's very cheesy 80s McCartney, but there you go. And Off the Wall by Michael Jackson has obviously got his cover of Girlfriend on there. So again, very loosely a part of the Paul McCartney CD collection. Whew, that's it. That's my Paul McCartney CD collection, folks. If there's any other topics like this you would like me to cover, other than Paul McCartney CD collections, let me know and I'll see whether I can put together a video on that. But thank you very much for watching. Let me know your comments down below. And I'm going to go and rest my voice now and have a little rest. I'll see you later. Bye.